Cool. Okay. So before I go through and talk about where the achieved answers are and merit level answers are and excellence level answers are in this excellence level piece, we need to make sure we know the vocabulary for what we are reading right now. You need to obviously be able to do that when you guys are researching and reading text. You also need to be able to do that when you are writing. When you guys are writing your reports, I do not want you to use words you do not know what they mean. Because if you don't know what they mean, it's one, not going to make a lot of sense. Two, you are likely copying, pasting. And I thought there was a third one. Third one is then you're probably going to get flagged on plagiarism, or I'm going to have to ask you to rewrite it because I can tell it is not something that I expect you guys to be able to do. So then I question the source. Maybe it's come from AI, that sort of thing. So let's have a chance to go through and read it. Now what I have done is I have read it and I have underlined words that I thought maybe you guys wouldn't know. I'll also go through your list after I've done that and just define words that you guys have identified. So for this excellence piece, this one is, like I said, the microbes one. They are looking at it in a different context. You guys are looking at it as a pathogenic complex for the microbes. They are just looking at it with compost. So when digging into the school compost, we observed steam coming off it and it felt warm to touch. We made a mini compost using a plastic bag and a thermometer was placed inside so the temperature could be recorded. Already I can kind of tell by reading that sentence, it's not a great sentence, but you can still get the gist of what the student is trying to talk about. They've given me a table. From this table, I can identify that these referring here are the days of the compost heat, and this is the compost heat temperature, which they have measured, and I can see that that's in degrees Celsius. So units are important because it gives me context. It'd be a very different story if that was Fahrenheit or Kelvin. All right. We found the temperature of the compost increased from 18 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius over 21 days. Feeding and absorbing nutrients is important because it is a life process that provides fungi cells with nutrients so other life processes can occur. For example, fungi feeding on the organic waste, and this is the first word that I kind of underlined as potential for you guys maybe not to get it in the right context. I don't know if any of you guys wrote organic. What does organic mean? Anyone wants to take a stab at it? From nature? Yep. So one of the things you have to keep in mind with scientific writing is that there is the scientific definition and then there's also the common definition for it. So when you guys think about the common definition for organic, you think about organic food, right? So food that has not have any like pesticides on it, no sprays and stuff. In the scientific context, organic means something different. It means carbon-based. So I'm going to give you guys that definition there. Organic waste, we're talking about carbon molecules, I should say, or structures. The thing to kind of remember when we're talking about carbon is that all life forms that we know of is carbon-based. It's a really good building block. Those that are doing organic chemistry next term, you'll get to see why. Okay, really great building block. All right, feeding on organic waste by extracellular digestion. So I was worried about the word extracellular, not so much the word digestion, because I figured you guys probably know the word digestion, and I can see that extracellular came up on a lot of these lists. I can see it on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lists. So everyone identified that extracellular was not a word they knew, and that's okay. So let's try to break that word down into 2 bits. We have extra and we have cellular. What does cellular mean? Or cell? It has to do something with cells. Outside of the cells. So extra is externally. Intra is internally. So intracellular digestion would be digestion within the cell. Extracellular digestion is digestion outside of the cell. So you can find the definitions to words without having to look it up on the dictionary or look it up online if you read the context clues and if you understand how to break down the language. So I've broken the word extracellular into 2 words. I've seen the word cellular, which tells me cells. I've seen the word extra, which which makes me think about exterior is the word I'm looking for. So that's how I figured out the word extracellular from that context. We good? All right. So that just means extra equals exterior, and then cellular tells you that you're talking about cells. So when I combine those two words together, extracellular, I'm talking about digestion outside of the cell. Cool? All right. They absorb the nutrients for cell respiration. And I underline respiration as well because I was mindful that respiration might not be a word that you guys can get. But remember that we also talked about respiration and how, again, it has two different contexts depending on what we're talking about. Most of you guys know respiration as in respire, breathing, but we have to think about it, is it the same context when we're talking about cells? So I would actually put cell and respiration together. So I won't go through it just yet. Let's read the rest of the paragraph to see if we can figure out the context from the rest of it. So it says, cell respiration would not occur without extracellular digestion, breaking down the organic waste and converting it into small enough molecules for the cells cell respiration to use. So I can start getting some context already. We are talking about food being broken down as part of the cellular respiration process. Let's see what else it means. The main purpose of cellular respiration is to convert nutrients absorbed by the extracellular digestion into energy cells that can sustain life. Now, I don't like how they've organized this sentence because it's very confusing. But context-wise, we are talking about how we are getting energy for that. So the writer was mindful that the reader may not know that word, so they have defined that word for you. And they define it as extracellular respiration is breaking down foods to get energy. Oh, sorry. Oh, my pen. Breaking down food to get energy. So again, I have been able to find the definition or the meaning of the word without even having to Google it. I've been able to find it within the reading itself. So this is what we're talking about when we're saying building your literacy skills. All right, we good so far? Okay. And I think a lot of you guys put that down as well. Respiration, I can see 1, 2 times. All right. The compost pile acts as an insulator, retaining the heat and causing the temperature of the compost to increase. I saw insulator as being a word that people have identified as something that they weren't sure what that meant. So again, use the context of the sentence provided and also think about other words that you've heard that are similar to insulator, or if you have heard insulator in the common English context. So by reading this, what can I kind of assume that insulator might mean? If it's retaining heat, causing the temperature to increase. It keeps heat in, is what insulator is telling me as a word. If you're thinking about common language, you might have heard people talking about like, oh, we need to insulate our house better, or landlords are required by law to insulate their houses, their flats, in order to lease it out, to rent it out. So that's, again, the same context. We insulate our homes to keep it warm. All right, so there's a lot you can get from context. All right, as the temperature rises, this causes the enzymes involved in extracellular digestion to break down the organic matter more quickly. So again, we've underlined the word enzymes because I figured that was probably a word that you guys may not know, and I see it 1, 2, 3 times. So we see that 3 times. So let's again see if we can figure out what that means by context, and if we don't know, we can Google it. Are you what? Okay. All right. So As the temperature rises, it causes the enzymes involved in extracellular digestion to break down the organic matter more quickly, which means more nutrients are absorbed for the cell respiration and more heat is released by the fungi but remains trapped in the compost, further increasing the temperature of the compost. So there's currently nothing in there that I'm finding that's helping me get a hint of what enzymes mean. I know enzymes has something to do with digestion, but that's it at this point. The other thing we can do is we can skim and scan the rest of the article, and I'm trying to see, do enzymes come up again? So they say, here's enzymes again as a word. Enzymes secreted through extracellular digestion break down the organic matter and make essential nutrients available for other organisms in the compost pile. So we know from this that enzymes have some role to play in the reaction, but we may not know the full word. So at this point, I would Google, because I can't figure it out by context. Let's go back here and we write the word enzyme. And Google tells me that enzymes are proteins that help speed up metabolism or chemical reactions in our body. They build some substances and break others down. All living things have enzymes. Our body naturally produces enzymes, but enzymes are also manufactured in products and in food. Now, are we okay with the word protein? Yeah, so protein you guys are familiar with, and if you guys remember, proteins have unique structures. So we're just talking about a protein that can do a specific job. And that specific job is speeding up chemical reactions. So I'll write that down just in case you guys need that. So enzyme. The other thing that I would note in there that isn't noted in that definition is that enzymes are not used up in the chemical reaction. So they're not a part of the reaction. They just help the reaction occur. So for example, if you were digesting sugar and that sugar was becoming carbon dioxide and water, let me add oxygen to that as well. So these two things are reactants. They will get used up in this chemical reaction to produce these guys here, which are my products. So this gets used up. All right. All the enzyme does is make this process faster. So the enzyme's sitting here, and it makes that process faster. So that ticks off another word that you guys weren't sure about. It ticks off insulator. Okay. All right, keep going. Okay. All right. Okay. I think we were done at this sentence. All right. All right. However, the graph below shows that the temperature of the compost gradually decrease over a period of time. So I heard someone identify the word gradually as something that they weren't sure what the word meant. So gradually, I don't know if you can actually figure that. Actually, we can figure this out. So they're talking about this graph here, and you see how there's the time and days, and you see how that's 10, 20, 30, 40, and how it increased the temperature and then decreased. And it increased the temperature very quickly, because you can see that only took 10 days to get to that high temperature, but it took another 10, 20, 30 days to get to that lower temperature again. So I can figure out by context that that word gradually means slowly. See what I'm saying? All right. This is caused by the reduction of organic matter, food. So you see how they've started to give you hints of what these words might mean. available to be broken down by extracellular digestion, causing a decrease in nutrients absorbed for the cell respiration, and therefore less heat energy being released and trapped. Cool. All right, go to the last one. Enzymes secreted. Now I saw the word secreted came up through the extracellular digestion, breakdown of the organic matter, and make essential nutrients available for other organisms in the compost pile. So some people identify the word secreted, and again, you can think about it through context. So we know through extracellular digestion, we are talking about the outside of the cell. So that is intra, this is extra. So inside the cell versus outside the cell. The cell is going to make enzymes, correct? But are the enzymes inside or outside of the cell when they make it? No, they're inside initially. So when they say secreted, we're saying release from the inside to the outside. Again, you can see context gives you ideas. Secreted means it is released, is another way to say that. So the full definition I would say for secreted is released from the intracellular environment. Obviously, that's a lot of words. So instead of using the words released from the intracellular environment, they just use the word secrete. Yeah? Just a way to say released. All right. To break down our game. Okay. Essential nutrients include carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Now, a lot of you guys weren't sure what the word phosphorus meant, and again, that's fine. All right, let's think about, let's finish the sentence. And are required for many life processes to occur, including cell respiration. We can figure out the word what phosphorus is referring to based on the context of what else is there. So what else is listed when we talk about phosphorus? Carbon and nitrogen. What is carbon and nitrogen? Gas. They're gases. What else? They're elements. All right. So do you think phosphorus is an element? It is. Yeah. So that's how I can figure that out through context. So through context, I know that that is an element like the other two. All right. This means that other organisms in the compost pile use the nutrients made available by extracellular digestion for cellular respiration, which releases more heat into the compost. Releases more heat into the compost's interconnected environment and further increases the temperature. And that's the end. All right. This is all the student wrote for excellence, and it was marked as excellence. It's the example excellence piece. It is only one page. So this is what I'm saying that you guys are probably over-researching and going to probably overwrite, which is why I'm putting a word limit on stuff. I used to not put a word limit on it because I didn't want you guys to feel stressed about the number of words, and I thought if I gave you guys all the words you want, you could get to excellence. But then I was reading like 13 pages about ocean acidification, and I was like, you don't need to have this many pages to say what you need to say. All right? So study smart, not hard. Do what is asked. Don't overdo it. You're welcome to keep going down the rabbit hole if you find it interesting, but you need to time manage, and you don't want to sacrifice your other assessments or your mental well-being to overdo this. Okay? So the next thing we're going to look at is what the achieve, merit, and excellence identification pieces are. Before I do that, let me just kind of identify other words that you guys identified. Aeration. I didn't see that word. Oh, it's in this graph? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. So, rapid rise due to biological activity. Typical curve for Woodrow's. Now, Woodrow's, I don't know what that word is, so we're going to have to look that word up. Typical curve for controlled aeration. I can figure out what that word means. And no more easily biodegradable carbon. I know what that one means. Okay. So, aeration. What word do you think comes out of aeration? Air. So, if a curve is being controlled for aeration, what do you think you're doing with the compost pile? You're adding air. So, one of the things you have to be mindful of is you'd only know this in context if you had a compost pile at home, or if you know of people who have compost piles. If you have a compost pile at home, what you have to do is like shuffle and mix it every so often. to allow the air into there. The reason why is because when you do respiration, there's aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. And you guys did talk about those two words when you were learning the microbe stuff last term. So aerobic respiration means respiration with oxygen, which I drew on, where did my piece of paper go? Here, see how I drew oxygen in that, I wrote oxygen in that equation? Anaerobic respiration means without air. Ana, it's usually a negative connotation. It's the opposite. So without air. So without air, respiration is not as effective. With air, it is. You get more energy if you use air. So that is what that is referring to, is this is the curve that we would do if you typically shuffled your compost and made sure there was air in there. All right, so that's like basically like a control. And when they say controlled, they mean like this is the baseline, what you'd expect happening. All right, so I figured out the word aeration. Basically, I'm just meaning I'm aerating, I'm adding air to my compost. All right, so let's see if we can find out what Woodrow's means, because I actually don't know that word. All right. Here we go. So a woodrow is a line of raked hay, corn sleeves, or pellets laid out in the dry to wind. Okay. So this is good to see visually. Oh, and then they have a compost heap to help you. So see, that's the compost heap. So basically it's just a fancy way to talk about the shape of the compost. And aerating it would be, mixing it up. So again, we can figure it out by context. So this would help with an image. So what they do in a lot of assessments is if they use words with a word you may not know, they give you an image to help. So this is just talking about like a pile, I would say, a line pile. Cool. All right. And then biodegradable. Now, have you guys heard that word before? Hopefully somewhere. You hear it a lot in the supermarket, right? When they sell you stuff, they want to sell you stuff that's biodegradable. And if you can afford it, I would say try to buy biodegradable things because it means that it will break down. So degradable, again, split it up into two words. Degradable means break down. Think about the word degrade. And then biology related. So naturally breaking down. So naturally breaking down. And then I think that actually covers all the words you guys have. Let's see. That one takes that one list off. That one you guys have ticked off. Yep, that one we've ticked off. Cool. These are some more that I will address. Secreted we did, phosphorus we did, biodegradable, insular we did. Interconnectedness was also highlighted. So that's a nice big word to break down. And this is actually a really important word that you guys know because on the assessment, they ask you, if you want the excellence, you need to show interconnectedness. So inter and connectedness, let's break that down into two words. Connected, what does that mean? To put together, to have a relationship, that sort of stuff. Inter means inside. I would say it's probably not the word inside is the right word, but like interconnectedness I would think about as you link it and you like your material really well. So what I was saying for this, if you're thinking about the criteria, and I see it here too, thoroughly discusses the relationship interconnectedness of pathogens in the human body. So the way that I want you guys to think about interconnectedness is that you need to talk about how pathogens and humans, I would say more so pathogens and how they need humans to survive. The other thing to think about is why do pathogens make humans sick? So those are the two questions. So first question is, why do pathogens need the human body? And then the second question is, what is the pathogen doing to make us sick? So those are the two interconnected questions. You're talking about it as a loop. Okay? Does that help? All right, I also saw the word molecule come up. Anybody want? I'll go over that one too. I don't know where it went. Let's see. I did see the word molecule somewhere. Oh, molecules. So again, we know that molecules are small. We can figure that out through context as well. Something to keep in mind is how we classify matter, and we classify it in different kind of groups. So if we're talking about a pure substance, it's only one thing. It could be a pure substance of a compound. It could be a pure substance of an element. So when we talk about element, we're talking about periodic table. When we talk about compound, we're talking about things with a chemical bond together that's holding it together. When we talk about mixtures, we are talking about two or more things that are not chemically bonded together. So like a mixture of salt and water. The salt does not bind with the water molecules. They are two separate things, but they are in one container together. Molecules is a really tricky word to describe. I would say molecules have covalent bonds. And I think we have talked about covalent and ionic bonds. They have covalent bonds, and they are small structures with covalent bonds. There's not a good kind of number to kind of talk about how many atoms you need until something goes from a molecule to something else. It's a very kind of loose definition. But when we talk about molecules, we're just talking about like things with covalent bonds that are not very large. They can be elements, so a molecule of hydrogen gas or nitrogen gas. They can be a molecule of a compound like carbon dioxide. It is a very hard word to explain though. I'm not going to lie. All right, we good with that? All right, just watching our time. What time did we finish? 25? Okay. We might need to take 2 days for this. I will pause it here for now because I want us to do something fun. And that's going to be the fungus stuff. Okay? I will come back to this on Thursday when I see you guys next, and we will go through and we will highlight the achieved, the merit, and the excellence. Okay? So hold on. Do you want me to collect this? I think I should collect it. Write your name on it. I'll collect it.